Hi, and welcome to The Working Songwriter, the show where today's best songwriters come to talk shop. I'm your host, Joe Pug. Each episode here we host a distinguished guest, and we ask them to go deep on their inspiration, on their process, on the general ups and downs of making a life in music. So, whether you're a grizzled veteran, playing dinner theaters in the suburbs to keep your six-piece band working, or else a scrappy upstart, playing DIY shows in basements that are not up to fire code, this is your show, because ultimately it is what every writer seeks most, an ironclad excuse to put off actually writing. Hey everybody, it's the first Friday of May 2023, and I thank you for joining us. This week's show is brought to you by Bandzoogle. Built by musicians and for musicians, Bandzoogle is an all-in-one platform to build a beautiful website for your music. I'm old enough to remember when you had to pay somebody called a web developer to get a website made, and it would always be some guy named Andres who drove a Nissan Murano with rims so big that the tires themselves were only about 2 inches deep, and who was always trying to sell you very ornate butterfly knives that he claimed his cousin bought wholesale from Vietnam. And old Andres would charge you about $1,000 for a website that would be obsolete in 6 months. But it's the future now, you guys. That's not how it works anymore. We're allowed to have nice things now. One of those nice things is Bandzoogle. Bandzoogle powers the websites of tens of thousands of musicians around the world, from weekend warriors to Grammy winners. All the features you need for a professional website are already built in. Hosting and a custom domain name, dozens of fully customizable design templates. This year, Bandzoogle would like to congratulate its members on surpassing $100 million in commission-free sales through their websites. The Working Songwriter podcast listeners can go to bandzoogle.com to try it for free for 30 days. Use the promo code TWS, the initials of our show, TWS, to get 15% off the first year of any subscription. If you'd like to hear some of my music live in the coming weeks, you can check out my tour page, joepugmusic.com/tour, where there are a bevy of new tour dates posted all around the country, from Pittsburgh to Pioneer Town, California. So I hope to see you there. Go to joepugmusic.com/tour. Finally, if you enjoy this podcast, if you'd like to help it remain a viable endeavor for me, here's a couple things that you could do to help. First, you could become a supporter of the show over at Patreon. Patreon is a platform that allows you to directly support creative endeavors that you find meaningful. You just head to their site, Patreon. You search for The Working Songwriter, or you search for my name, and then you sign up to kick in a few bucks every month for the show. Think of it as a voluntary subscription. A subscription that you don't have to pay for, but that you choose to pay for because you dig the show and because you won't miss a few bucks at the end of the month. If just 1% of our listenership kicked in the price of a cup of coffee every month, it would make a profound difference. So thank you to everybody who's taken the time and the capital to support the show in that way. If you're not in a place where you can support us in that way, it's totally understandable. You could still help us out in a couple of ways that are free. First, you could leave us a review in the iTunes store, leave us a rating in the iTunes store that is positive and good for the show. Or second, you could just tell a friend about the show. Spread the word about the show. Text somebody a link to an episode that you dig a lot. Help us continue to grow. The simple math on those two things is that they will help me much more than they will be a pain in the ass for you. Okay, I'll end all the harassment there. I hope that you dig this week's chat. Our guest this week is a collaboration between songwriters who all had met success on their own beforehand. My Sister, My Brother is the new project from Sean McConnell, Garrison Starr, and producer Peter Groenwald. Sean should be no stranger to the listeners of this program, as he's been a guest several times already. He's penned tunes for Little Big Town, Brad Paisley, Martina McBride, the Brothers Osborne, and a host of others. Peter Groenwald is a triple threat artist, writer, and producer based in Nashville, Tennessee. And Garrison Starr began her career as a singer-songwriter in the 1990s when she signed to Geffen Records and was invited to play on the iconic all-female traveling music festival, Lilith Fair. The three of these seemingly disparate artists met in 2018 at a songwriting retreat, and the result immediately struck all of them as more than the sum of its parts. So, they decided to continue chasing down that lightning in a bottle. They released their debut record in 2020, and they are now back with the single Cry Me a River. Billboard magazine calls them a songwriting supergroup. American Songwriter says that their music explores life's painful truths, often approaching these truths from a hopeful perspective, yet with tender honesty. I got a chance to catch up with Garrison and Sean on the phone a few weeks ago to hear about their musical journey so far. Garrison Starr and Sean McConnell, when your powers combine, you become my sister, my brother. We're very happy to have you here on the Working Songwriter podcast. Listen, our audience is way too familiar with Sean and his backstory, so we're just going to let Sean relax for the first part of this interview. Sit back.
Why don't I even get dressed for this thing?
Do people still smoke? Can you have a cigarette right now or something, Sean?
Because we want out of my hotel.
we want to get more familiar with Garrison Starr and her trajectory. You're originally from Memphis. What did music look like in your household growing up there in West Tennessee?
Oh, wow. Well, so I'm officially from Hernando, Mississippi, which is, part of the Memphis metropolitan area. But I always say Memphis because I went to high school in Memphis, and, I grew up in that small little town, but Memphis was my big city. Mm-hmm. And, we listened to a lot. I remember my mom used to kind of fumble around on the piano. She liked to try to play Dionne Warwick songs, the Burt Bacharach. Huh. And we listened to a lot of the Ink Spots, a lot of the Stones and the Beatles, also a lot of gospel music, church music, and the Animal House soundtrack.
Yes. We've done over 200 episodes of this podcast, and you're the first person to name check the Animal House soundtrack as a deep influence.
That's a fond memory, man.
That's unreal.
What was the first music, though? So that's music that your mom is bringing you, that your family is bringing you. What is the first music that you kind of found on your own that kind of set you on fire and set you on the path that you're on now?
The Bangles.
Really?
Without a doubt. Yeah, the Bangles. Huh. I don't know what it was, but I think like I saw them and they were hot and they were all chicks, and it was like, okay, this is badass. Like this is what I want to do. All female thing. I can do this. I don't know. I really loved it. Different Light. Their record Different Light was the first record I ever owned on vinyl.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
And you just spin that one. And so when did you start becoming not just a listener of music, but a participator? What did you learn first, and how did you come to the trade?
Well, honestly, I had a pair of drumsticks, and I started writing songs with the drumsticks, just melodies, the drumsticks on the mattress. And the first song I ever wrote was called Don't Throw Your Head. I don't remember how it goes, but I remember it was a beat and a melody, and that was the first song I ever wrote. Don't Throw Your Head.
It's funny. So Wow. It's like you came to music not, necessarily learning scales or anything like that. You just, like, from day one, you started in, like, the most creative and, in my opinion, difficult place to begin, which is actually composing your own stuff.
Well, to be honest with you, I came to music as a necessity because, I grew up in evangelical Christianity, and I was very aware at a young age of my sexuality. And I was also very aware that I would not be accepted for being gay. And so writing songs and writing poetry and really diving into that creative process was the only outlet I had to talk about my real feelings. So that's really why I started writing songs in the first place, because there was a time, a very lonely time growing up, where music and songs were really my only friends. They were my only confidants, because they that was the only safe place I had to really reference what I was going through and, find hope in the dark. It was a dark time.
What kind of imprint do you think that initial relationship with songwriting, what kind of imprint do you think that still has on your creativity today?
Oh, that's interesting. That's such a beautiful question. You mean when you say what kind of imprint, you mean just that connection with music, or?
Well, you're describing music kind of being like this existential lifeline for you. You're kind of saying, I didn't feel accepted. This is the one place where I did. So that is, a question of existence at that point. So it's very do or die. Not everyone came to music in that way. In fact,
right.
Most people don't. So what, if any, effect do you think that still has? What echoes of that are still in your writing and your creative world today?
Okay. So a couple of things. What I hear from that is, number one, I think that I like the do or die phrase. I have a very, what's the word? I have a very protective, strong idea of what it means for me to be an artist. To me, it means to stand in truth. It means to stand up for myself, to stand up for things, to sing and use my voice for bigger ideas. But I also think it's been interesting learning how to collaborate with others, songwriting wise, over the last 10 to 12 years. That has made me realize that I can, I don't have to just write songs about certain things. I can also be a character. I can also be a support for someone else in a collaboration. It's opened me up a lot in what I can write about and what I can do musically. Does that make sense?
It does. It does,
Okay.
But it also, it does set you apart. I mean, that first part that you said, that your whole conception, your whole paradigm for being an artist is, before talking about creativity or talking even about the form of the music, what you're talking
Right.
about, you said standing in truth, and sort of maybe not a subjective truth, but a larger kind of objective truth that other people can access as well.
Yeah, fair. That's true. I would say that is true.
So how did you go from the lonely teenager writing in your bedroom in figuratively your bedroom in West Tennessee to when you first jump on the scene? It's the 1990s. The music business is at its absolute apex, and all of a sudden you're signed to Geffen Records. How did you go from point A to point B?
It's the weirdest thing. It makes no sense whatsoever. I actually think about this a lot when I get stuck in trying to work from the outside in. When you get stuck trying to get validation from the outside, you forget that you created, that you have this gift and you create it from the inside out. I had a manager, my very first manager. We called him Fish. Terrible manager, but he worked at the Gin Alley. He was terrible, but he was, at that time, I realized I worked with people I could trust that would have my back, on a personal level. I didn't have because of my trauma, I didn't really understand, somebody needed to be good at business. I was just surviving. But anyway, he worked at this record store in Oxford, Mississippi, called the Gin Alley. And, back then they actually had to talk to salespeople at the record labels to get records in stores. And he struck up friendships with all these A&R guys and sales and marketing dudes. And my first A&R guy ended up being Ray Farrell, who had started out in sales at Geffen. I was his first A&R gig because him and Fish got to be friends on the phone, and Fish sent him this song that I'd done called Superhero. And he played it it was just like a fairy tale story. He played it for everybody at the label. Next thing you know, I was on a plane to LA, and that was it. It was just kind of an overnight crazy thing. He sent the song, they freaked out about the song. The A&R guy flew to a show I was playing in Memphis, and literally a month later I had a development deal and I was flying back and forth to LA.
Wow.
How did you process that on a personal level? I mean, that is what every artist thinks is going to happen when they're younger, but it doesn't happen to everybody. It happened to you. That's amazing.
I know. I don't even think I realized what a big deal it was. I think for me it was just I felt like I just sort of, I just opened my mouth and I could sing one day. I didn't take lessons. There was no system to it. I didn't learn theory. I didn't go to school. I didn't like to practice. I just picked up the guitar and it made sense and I could play it, and so So I looked at it as like, I have this gift and obviously this is what's meant to happen. And, looking back at it now, it's interesting because at the time, like I literally had been kicked out of my friend group, told that I have to repent of my sin of being gay before I can get back into the group, which obviously I was like, suck it, I'm out, So, but as the same time that I literally had friends ignoring me to my face, like, do you hear anything? We are not allowed to speak to her, I had that going on. And then I had a major record label deal. So it's like I was playing like a sold out show at the Omni New Daisy in Memphis, like my very first huge show. And I'd have some of these people who had been giving me tough love all this time were like, yeah, go Garrison. So it was like, you know what I'm saying? So
wow.
The bitterness set in at a young age. And that I have struggled with for the last 20 years, if I'm being honest. That's been the biggest hindrance to me in getting in my own way is learning how to let go of the past and the mistakes that I made. Because in the beginning, to your original question, it's like I couldn't even really process what was going on because I was just in survival mode from evangelicalism. But then also, I'm in these situations where it's like I could be moving, my career could be moving forward. I could be growing. I could be expanding. But I did not have the tools to do any of that. You know what I mean? I didn't. I
mean, we've only met now for 10 minutes, Garrison, but you don't strike me as bitter in any way. In your opinion, though, like, well, good. Well, good. Thank God for that. But in your opinion, what did that bitterness do to you, and what things did it cost you at the time?
It burned a lot of bridges. It shut doors that were open. It shut me down to a place where I was just angry all the time. I watched my touring numbers dwindle. I never really spent enough time building my own headlining career because I think I got so many opportunities opening for great artists that I just sort of, and again, I didn't have good management. I never had good management. And so we never, I just was kind of, jumping from lily pad to lily pad all those years, just getting by, just not really understanding what the vision is for me, myself, having a vision that like nobody's going to come along and, sew it up for you. And hey, I got you, kid. Let me work out your career. It's like, no, that's my job. No. What do I want to do? What do I want to say? How do I want to inspire? How am I being inspired? Where do I want to go? What do I want that to look like? I didn't know that I could do that. I didn't know I had permission to do that. And I was just too busy, fighting the demons in my own heart and, looking for enemies around me. That's another thing. It made me paranoid. I just couldn't. I looked at everybody as an enemy. Somebody's trying to take something from me. Somebody's judging me. Somebody's looking at me funny. I mean, I can't tell you how many fights I've gotten into with strangers at the airport. I mean, I'm telling you, I was a loose cannon for a while just because I didn't have any tools. I was hurting. I was an exposed nerve running around all over the place. People were just like, what the hell is this?
Yeah, and sometimes, very early success or success at any time can really shine a spotlight on that exposed nerve where it maybe could have grown in the shadows for a little while. You know what I mean? In a good way.
Well, you should, both of y'all, I bet you can relate to this. It's like people talk about the imposter syndrome, but what I have found to be the hardest thing to do is to receive love. I'm asking for to receive encouragement. I'm asking for to receive support that I've been asking for, to receive the things that I want and am asking for. That is the hardest thing. That's been the big challenge for me. I wonder if you guys feel that same way,
It's a tough thing. I mean, even if you just take like the small, tiny example of, let's say someone comes up to you after a show and they've had like a profound experience with one of your songs. And if they just try to communicate that to you in 2 minutes, if they try to communicate it to me, it makes me profoundly uncomfortable for 2 minutes. Which it shouldn't. I should just be able to, well, thanks. I've had songs do the same thing to me. That means a lot, not take it too personally. But yeah, I mean, I know exactly what you mean. It's really hard to accept that.
It's weird, though. You wouldn't think. You would be like, oh, yeah, if I just had $1 million, everything would be great. It's like, really? Would it? Would you know how to handle that? Would you be able to receive that and really be in that abundance? It's not as easy as it sounds, and it doesn't solve all your problems,
Well, so how did the two of you cross paths. Sean, when did you first become aware of Garrison's music?
Well, let me begin by saying I feel like I am like a fly on the wall of the best conversation happening in the world right now.
Fair enough.
I'm learning so much about you, Garrison, and I feel like we already knew everything about each other.
Oh, dude.
I love hearing your story, and I love being in this room with you guys right now.
Me too.
We met totally by chance at there was a songwriting week at a publishing company. I forget how long ago this has been, but 4 or 5 years maybe.
I think so.
And
2018, I want to say, maybe.
Yeah, that sounds right. So we were both part of that, and we got teamed up one day with Peter Groenwald, the three of us in a room, who was a member of this group and wrote all these songs with us, and is still a good friend of ours and a great artist in his own career. But the three of us were just put together, and we went to Peter's studio, and I don't know how to describe it. It sounds kind of cliche and romantic, but as soon as we started writing, and specifically when I started singing with Garrison, it felt like we had done it for 20 years. I don't say that lightly. I've sung with a lot of people, and the songs that we wrote were just really special and easy, and we were harmonizing and without talking through what the parts were going to be. It was just one of those things where we kind of all looked at each other like, wow, this has nothing to do with this writing camp. Like, this was just meant to happen. And so that's kind of the short story of how we met and started the first record that we put out a couple of years ago.
Was that your impression of it, Garrison, or did it feel like pulling teeth to you?
Oh, yeah.
Leading the witness.
Yeah, exactly. Well, yeah. I mean, first of all, I had heard such great things about, I knew Peter already, but I'd heard such great things about Sean. So I was excited to be in the right with Sean. And this fool brought in the chorus, like one of the greatest choruses. He's just like, hey, man, last night I was like working on this and this just kind of came out. And I was just like, what the? So I tried to change it because I'm like, well, this can't just be right as it is. This fool can't just bring this chorus in like this. So I tried to change it, and then I realized, well, there's nothing to be changed. It's wonderful. And it was the chorus to Nothing Without You. And I just was like, I just thought my mind was blown. It was just so beautiful. And and I concur with Sean just about how fun it was to sing with him, because it's just like a lot of times you just take for granted that not everybody can sing harmonies. Not everybody can sing like you can and can do the things you want them to do. And Sean was doing all the stuff that I would do and even stuff that I wouldn't do. And I'm like, oh, man. So it was really beautiful. I just felt super lucky to be in that room that day, for sure.
There is something to being a little bit further on in your career, and I found this not with other writers, but with musicians. Recently, I've been working on something, and I have this group of musicians that I work with now that I was just kind of reflecting. I had this meta reflection the other day of like, man, everything just sounds good when these people send me this stuff. And I realized, well, yeah, I'm not 22 anymore. So everyone that I'm working with has like a lot of experience. And if they don't have experience, they're not doing it anymore. They're in another line of work now. You know what I mean? And so there is something. I hear the two of you talking about getting to work with one another and it just working. And it's like, well, yeah, how many hours in the gym do you both separately have before you had even met one another? So of course there's going to be just a baseline level of of competence that is just fun to interact with,
That's a great point. I hadn't thought about it like that. Yeah.
Yeah. But also, like, we're in rooms every day with talented people.
Sure.
And it's so set apart. So there was that plus, it was just like the spiritual connection, that just makes it what it is.
Well, and it's a very special thing. Sorry to cut you off, Joe.
No, you're great.
It's a special thing, I think, too. Like for me, there's a handful of people that I just trust, knowing that if they're gonna go after lyrics, I'm good. Like I trust that. Like Sean isn't going to throw something out lyrically that that doesn't work for me. And I love being able to trust that whatever he's coming up with,
Yeah.
musically and lyrically, it's something that I'm going to be excited about. It's not something I feel like I gotta filter up and change up. It's like I trust it, and that's such a, to your point, that is so much fun.
That is, yeah, and not having to worry that there's going to be like a clunker. It's like, well, you went into the other room and wrote the lyrics, but can we not use the word jinkos in this song? Like, I just really, I don't want to use
Jinkos.
that.
Yeah,
really.
Dude.
What rhymes with Billabong?
Oh man, yeah, those moments where you're just like, where you're just like, yeah. Does anybody want lunch? Actually, should we Postmate something? I'm getting kind of hungry.
Yeah. Are you stuck in a rut? Are you tired of listening to that Jimmy Buffett 20th Century Masters CD over and over again and need some new music? Are you sick of making hamburger helper beef stroganoff for dinner every night and you want something new to cook? What you are looking for, my friends, is the Enthusiast Digest. That's my monthly newsletter, which arrives in your inbox the first Sunday morning of every month, bursting with musical recommendations, poetry selections, recipes and cooking techniques for my favorite dishes, and items of general interest culled from the vast cesspool that is the Internet. The Enthusiast Digest is free to subscribe to. If you dig the poetry that you hear on this show and the artists that you're hearing from, you'll dig the newsletter because I approach it with the exact same sensibility of curation. Go to joepugmusic.com/newsletter today to sign up for free. That is joepugmusic.com/newsletter. It takes approximately 15 seconds to sign up for a free newsletter that will enrich the first Sunday of your month with a veritable cornucopia of new and delightful recommendations. That's the Enthusiast Digest, the first Sunday of every month. Sign up for free at joepugmusic.com/newsletter. Both Sean and Garrison are no strangers to writing songs about heartbreak in their own work, and their new single, Cry Me a River, is mined from that same dark vein. So, in honor of that, I'd like to read a wry poem about betrayal and heartbreak. It's entitled The Neighborhood So Far by Ron Carlson. If my heart is a house, then it stands on your street in the little village where you are a paperboy, mailman, garbage collector, water meter reader, building inspector, vacuum cleaner salesman, UPS driver, yard crew, chimney sweep, window washer, tax assessor, magazine solicitor, census taker, snow shoveler, house painter, voyeur, door-to-door scam artist, vandal, burglar, thief, extortionist, thief, burglar, thief, arsonist, arsonist, arsonist. When did it start to look like something other than just a really great singular writing session that the two of you guys, I mean, you're now on your second release. I mean, we're a couple of years into this. So when did it start looking like a project, a discrete project of its own?
Pretty early on. I think after we wrote that first day, I want to say we had a second day together as well.
Yeah.
I can't remember if that's the way it happened, but I think that second day we all kind of came back and it was all like on our faces, but no one had said anything, kind of a thing. And we were maybe halfway through that day, we were like, is this a thing? Like, should we actually spend time on this? And, you know, for three people who already have full-time gigs and solo careers, and Peter was in his own solo career and the another band, a couple of bands. And Joe, I mean, you know this, anybody that's doing this professionally at our age, like your time is already pretty much spoken for. It's a lot. So to actually take on, like, not only let's make a record, but are we going to tour this? Are we going to like promote this? Are we going to find a home for this?
Right.
It was kind of crazy to think about, and also very natural at the same time. And the fact that we're still doing it, it's just a testament to how, special we both feel about it.
Well, and I will say, to Peter's credit, I mean, Peter was in kind of the producer role. I mean, he was also writing with us too. He's an amazing writer as well, but he was in a producer role that day. He was the track guy. Yeah. And he really was like, y'all, what is going on here? Like, y'all, this is crazy. Like, he was very encouraging in terms of like saying, we got to do more stuff and we really got to hone in on this because this is something he was very much excited and on board from the beginning, which I just think was super encouraging too,
Totally.
There is something just precious about, like a room full of seasoned veterans being like, guys, should we start a band?
I know. You feel like you're 15 and you're like, okay, first order of business. What are we going to do?
What's the name? Right. No, that's great though. And I mean, in some ways it's exactly what every time you enter a writing room, I mean, it's kind of what you're in a strange way hoping for, right? Like that kind of connection.
Magic, some kind of magic.
Sean, what do you admire the most about Garrison's writing? What do you think that she is absolutely world-class at, specifically when it comes to songwriting?
Specifically to songwriting, I mean, the way that, as you can tell, like, you get what you see with Garrison. Like, there's, as a product of who she is, but also all the internal work she's done over the years. And that is, like, absolutely evident in her songwriting. So I like the straightforwardness of it. It's almost like, there's happy songs and her catalog has a variety of feelings, but a strong majority of them, like from the first note that she's singing and the first lyric I hear, it gives you that like twinge in your gut or like a lump in your throat. And it's like the way she sings and the way she writes comes from the same place of that feeling. And even like if we're performing together on stage and maybe we're both taking a song of our own and I'm just sitting up there and watching her. We're at this point, really great friends, but also I'm just I watch her as a fan still. One of my favorite voices, and specifically the songwriting, just so honest and beautiful and poetic without feeling like it's pretentious or like it was hard to write. It's just very organic, but yet I don't know. It's just my kind of music.
I am going to ask another question right now, but per our conversation earlier, I just want to pause for like 3 seconds and make Garrison feel the pain of having to receive that compliment.
It's painful. It's hurting me.
So, in the same way, Garrison, what when you've worked obviously with a number of very creative people, what do you think Sean does in a writing and a creative capacity that is world class that you would put up against anyone that you've ever worked with before?
I just what comes to mind. There's so many things I could say about Sean. He's such a safe person in so many ways. He's compassionate. He is mature. Like, I feel like Sean has a very open and supportive nature. He's such he's annoying because he's really good at everything. Like he can play everything. He can write everything. He really doesn't need you. You know what I mean? But he will let you in there and he'll make you feel like you're contributing, but really you don't need to be there because he could do it by himself. But I just feel like
I really couldn't do this by myself, Garrison.
But I just I just feel like when I'm in a session with Sean or when I'm with Sean, it's just a world-class experience all the way around. I just feel like he's at the top of his game. He's so professional. He's so in the flow. That's what I love. One thing I love about you, Sean, is like, I know that you're always in the flow. Somehow you're able to just kind of find that. And I feel like sometimes I struggle to get into the flow just because I have a lot of anxiety. I get in my own way about things. But I always feel safe when I'm with Sean, and I always know that I can trust him to help me find the flow, and that if I'm in his world and I'm in his vibe, that it's going to be good. It's going to be a good thing, and I'm going to learn a ton. So I just, I look up to him a lot.
Be careful saying Sean can do it on his own, because he has another browser window open right now. He's in Chat GPT saying, write Garrison Starr second verse for my.
Oh God! I'd love to see that. I'd love to see what that would come up with.
What are some of the constraints of this project that you both find writing for this project? Like what do you think the tone is of this project? Do you guys find yourself working on something now and you say, well, that might be a Sean song or that might be a Garrison song, but it's not a my sister, my brother song? Like what constraints do you find yourself working under with this project?
Interesting.
Yeah, it is interesting.
I would say I feel like. Yeah, go ahead.
No, you go, Garrison.
I was just going to say that's interesting. I don't feel constrained. I feel like, we have we're on the same page. Like we wrote, one of the songs we wrote in the second batch of songs that are coming out was a song that didn't fit. And we kind of just knew it, we kind of both just brought it up. I just feel like we're on the same page with that. It doesn't seem like a struggle. We've pretty much been able to work through those, making those decisions without much push and pull, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, I feel like it's kind of odd to say it this way, but the way that I feel about it is when we get together, like all three of us are writers and we know how it feels to write by ourselves, and you're not worrying about anyone else's opinion. You just are what you are. I feel like when we get together, it becomes that, like the two of us make the one mind that comes up with. So it's not like, oh, this feels a little bit more like a Garrison song. Can we pull it a little bit more into the sister-brother world? It's just like we know what we are. It comes out naturally, as it does when you're writing by yourself, which is, I think, another testament to us working together, because we all know in a co-write situation, it can feel very not that,
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Because this is not necessarily either one of your quote unquote like main projects, it's not my main thing, but this is a significant project that you're doing. Nonetheless, do you feel less pressure working on this project because it's another thing that you're doing rather than your main gig, basically?
Garrison?
Yeah, I guess I would say that. I guess I would say that it doesn't feel like pressure, but then at the same time, it's something that I feel so strongly about. I want it to. I feel some pressure. I don't know. I'm sitting with the word pressure. I feel some sense of urgency just because being excited about the songs in the same way that I get excited about a batch of my songs that I want people to hear. I still feel that same desire and that same urgency, of wanting people to get this and wanting us to be able to, go and have success with it. I still feel that same wanting, that I do for my own, career. I still feel the same for my sister, my brother,
Yeah.
Is it easier to want it for this project than it is for your own at this point? Or is it about the same?
I would say it's easier for me to want this. Yeah. I would say that for me, just because it's something different.
That's a cool thing. No, but to find something like that, later in a career, that's a gift. That's wonderful.
Yeah, I agree with that.
It really is. Yeah, it is a gift for sure. I think the other thing that makes it, my answer to that would be, I feel the same desire that Garrison does as far as, not pressure, but that thing that we all want. Like, man, I really believe in this, and I think it's special, and I want it to do as much as it can. That exists as much as it does, for my own records. Because when it comes down to it, it's all about the music. I think the older we get, I guess I can't speak for people in general, but I feel like a lot of the people I talk to, well, let me talk from my own point of view because that was confusing me. The older I get, I was like, I'm about to talk for humanity, which is a horrible place.
Speaking for humanity.
You see, most of us in the West. God, now I forgot what I was going to say. What were we talking about? I just lost my track.
Well, I suppose the question was, like, do you find it easier to want this then?
Yeah. I was saying the older I get, the more, I think the less ego enters the scene, and the more I just want the art to be as good as it can be and reach its greatest potential. And so whether that's my solo record or Sister Brother, or even like on another tangent, another artist I'm producing, it's more about how can this be as good as it can be and be what it's meant to be and reach the most people. Yeah. And so for Sister Brother, that's equally as important to me. And the other thing that makes it different as far as pressure is, and we've talked about this a lot, Garrison and I, it's so much more fun to not just get in a car by yourself and hit the stage every night by yourself. Like when there's two of us there, if it's a great night, we're celebrating. If it's a shitty night, we'll go back and we'll be like, wow, that sucked. Yeah. And that's like such a great thing to have on a daily level, especially on a touring level.
Yes.
That is something that I find great joy
That's
in.
huge. I mean, the solo thing, go ahead.
Sorry, Joe.
I was just going to say,
right,
the solo thing, touring is, I mean, you can make money that way, and it's great, but it's also just driving around the country by yourself to play shows. You start to feel like Javier Bardem in No Country for Old Men. You know what I mean? It's like, I feel like a total fucking psycho, you know?
That movie was so fucking weird and depressing.
Yeah.
Holy shit.
Yeah, but it's great to have a partner to do. You just feel a little bit less crazy, I would imagine. It's great.
Well, then you just get two psychos.
Well, I have to say, I'm just making a connection. Like, so for me, I'm an only child. And so when I think about, all the shit that I went through growing up and all the things I had to process completely by myself, I always wanted a sibling, because I just was like, man, if I had a sibling who could just be straight and get married and give my parents everything that they want, then maybe I'll get left the fuck alone. You know what I mean? To do what I want to do. But so in this project, it's like, it's to Sean's point, it is so nice to just have a partner where it's not all about me. It's not all the focus is on me all the time. All the success on my shoulders, all the failure on my shoulders, all the notes on my shoulders, all the sales. It's nice to feel like I have a family, a partner in it, where we're partners in crime. That is really important for me right now. Like, I really love that. I feel very grateful for that,
I'm your straight sibling.
There you go.
That's right. You're my straight sibling. Thank goodness.
Well, I'm glad that you chose the title "My Sister and My Brother" instead of titling the project that. But fair enough. Well, hey, listen.
My straight sibling.
Congratulations! Congratulations on the new release. Thank you so much for being a part of the Working Songwriter. It was a pleasure to talk to you guys.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, Joe. Thanks for having us.
You are an incredibly gifted interviewer. Really.
Thank you.
What a beautiful. Thank you for putting so much love into the background and everything. It's just really a pleasure to meet you.
Pleasure to meet you too.
Oh, he's squirming.
Yeah, I'm cutting it off now.
He can't take it.
I'm cutting it off now. I hope we get to cross paths sometime soon, Garrison, and same, obviously, Sean, my buddy. I hope we get to see you soon. This week's show is brought to you by Bandzoogle. Built by musicians and for musicians, Bandzoogle is an all-in-one platform to build a beautiful website for your music. Use promo code TWS, the initials of our podcast, TWS, to get 15% off the first year of any subscription. My sister and my brother's latest single is entitled Cry Me a River, available everywhere music is sold or streamed. If before we meet again you sit down to write, please remember, an expensive drug habit is not a song, a compelling Instagram account is not a song, and most importantly, reverb is not a song. So let all that take care of itself, and for you, just keep your eye on the song.